Crabapple Cottage. Today I wanted to talk about tapping black walnut trees to make syrup. So I love maple syrup. I can't stand that corn syrup imitation maple syrup that you can buy at the store. I've kind of gotten spoiled. I really love real maple syrup, but it's pretty expensive. So I wanted to learn how to make my own. Now, we don't have any maple trees on my property. In fact, we only have one tree on my little quarter-acre property, and that is a crabapple. So that's not going to work. I do have a neighbor who's got two silver maple trees in the front of their property, and I have reached out to her to see if she would let me tap those trees. They're not sugar maple, they're silver maple, but I think it will work. And then my parents' property, which is just down the road, has a ton of black walnut trees. If you see my other videos, you'll see that I do harvest those black walnuts and then crack them over the winter to use in baked goods. So I wanted to try my hand at making black walnut syrup. So I got online and I found a kit. This kit, I think it's called the Deluxe Kit. I'll put a link to it in the description. So it comes with 20 of these plastic spiles or taps, which has got a section that you put into the tree, you hammer it in, and then you connect a tube to the bottom of it. So I have 20 of these, and then I have 20 lengths of blue tubing. I think they're a couple feet long each. They came in these little knots. There we go. So that's what they look like. So 20 pieces of tubing, 20 spiles. It also came with 2 filters for filtering the syrup, and a 5/16" drill bit, metal drill bit, as well as a couple pages of instructions and this book. So that is what I purchased online. So then I had to get a couple of additional supplies. I had to purchase food grade buckets because you can collect your syrup in a lot of different ways. There are bags out there, metal buckets. You can do a system where you have all your trees connected together and they dump into one big barrel or something like that. But I decided to go for the food grade buckets because afterwards I can use them for other things if I need to. I can even do them for food storage later. So I picked up this white food grade bucket at Walmart. The lids come separately, so I bought lids. So I got 10 buckets and 10 lids. Now I have 20 spiles, right? So what I'm going to do is drill 2 holes in each bucket and put 2 taps in each tree because I do have pretty old black walnut trees and they can handle the 2 taps. So I bought the buckets and the lids separately, and then I also needed a drill. I don't have a really strong cordless drill, it's kind of weak, but I did pick up this manually operated drill. Works like this. Old tools at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. So you're going to use this with my brand new drill bit and use that to tap the trees. The other thing you need to do is you need to measure on your drill bit 1.5 inches in from the tip. And I'm going to use a magic marker and a ruler to do that. And you want to mark that because that's how far you want to go into the tree. So as you're drilling, when it approaches that 1.5 inch mark, that's when you stop and pull it out. So these are the equipment that I have. I've got to mark my drill bit. I've got to drill some holes in my lids. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sterilize all of my equipment. Now, everything is food grade, of course, but it's been in the store or it's been shipped and all that sort of thing. So I want to make sure it's really good and clean. So what I'm going to do is mix, I think it's 1 part bleach, 20 parts water, and I'm going to rinse out all of my tubes and my spiles, as well as my buckets, so that everything is squeaky clean and ready to go. Okay, so this is one of the walnut trees in my parents' property that I tapped. I used that old-fashioned manual drill. Here you go. You can see on the drill bit, I marked a red line. Sort of see it. There you go. I marked a red line with a magic marker. That's 1.5 inches so that when I'm drilling into the tree, I only go 1.5 inches in. Then I take the spile with the hose attached, and I use a rubber mallet to hammer it in until it won't go any farther. You don't want to do it too hard. I did originally try to put the hoses or the tubes on the spiles outside, and I found that it was just not happening. So what I found worked best was I took the tubes inside. I used a hairdryer to warm up the ends of several at a time, and then I was able to shove the spile ends into the tubes. after they had warmed up. So I recommend that you put your spiles on your tubes ahead of time by doing that inside and warming up the tubing. It seems to work the best. So here I have just taken a 5-gallon food grade bucket from Walmart and a white lid that also comes from Walmart. I drilled 2 holes in each bucket with a 1/2-inch drill bit. I did use my electric drill for that at home. These were sterilized, I said, with bleach solution and washed out. Sorry, it's cold out here. My lips are struggling. Anyways, I rinsed them out really well. Put my taps in there and then fed the end of the hose into the buckets. So these are all set up. It's in the 20s right now, so the sap really shouldn't be flowing right now, but it's supposed to warm up in the next few days. And really, I just expect the temperatures to keep fluctuating on and off for the next few weeks or month or so. You want to stop tapping your trees when they start budding, because that's when the sap starts changing the flavor. So you want the temperatures to be below freezing at night and above freezing during the day. That's when the sap starts flowing. So it's probably not going to happen today, because like I said, it's a little chilly, but hopefully we start getting some sap soon. Alright, so you want to pick a spot with a large root or a large branch, preferably on the south side of the tree. Now this is a maple tree. I'm actually going to tap 2 maple trees that my neighbor so generously said I could tap. You want to put it in a slight angle so that the sap comes out. Not quite there, but I just want to get some of that sawdust out. Remember, you're going into the red line, or no farther than the red line. There we go. Buckets. And I might come out here later and secure the bucket to the tree or something. There we go. You can see I'm actually in an urban area. There's a sidewalk right here, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. I hope nobody disturbs it. Like I said, these are my neighbor's trees, and I did get permission to tap them, so we'll see how it goes. Here is some maple sap that I collected this morning that I am boiling down. I use this old camp pot. This is like a food mill with a wooden cone that you use to, I use to press out the juice out of my tomatoes. But I got this filter that comes with my maple syrup tapping kit. So I just pour the syrup into that, straight into the pot, and this takes out the debris that was in the buckets floating around. And then I will filter it again later when I get it reduced down a little bit more. So right now it's boiling. What I've been doing, because I don't have a lot of room in my refrigerator, don't have enough sap to make a whole batch of syrup in one go. So what I've been doing is boiling this down, reducing it to about, a quarter of its volume, and then letting it cool, and then putting it in 1/2-gallon jars in the refrigerator. And then once the season's over, or I get enough, then I will actually turn the reduced sap into syrup. Here is a 1/2-gallon jar of maple sap that I have reduced. You can see how different the color is. It's not clear. This is, I would say, about a quarter of the volume that it was. Actually, it's probably reduced more than that, because this is several days worth. It says 21 and 22, but I think it's several days worth that I reduced and then put in this. So it is definitely sweet. It tastes pretty much like maple syrup, but it's just not. It's just not quite the consistency. Now this over here is black walnut syrup, and I reduced this. Obviously, there's not a lot there yet, because I haven't really been getting a lot out of my black walnut trees. But I reduced this, and I intended to make it like this, but I overcooked it, I wasn't paying attention, and it got really, really reduced. So it is now syrup, and it tastes really good. Honestly, to me, it tastes pretty much like maple syrup. There's just a slight, like, earthy, nutty flavor, but I think if you were to pour it over pancakes, you would not notice the difference between the black syrup and the maple syrup. So this is where we are so far. I'll continue to boil any black walnut sap and maple sap that I get. And depending on how much I get with the black walnut, I may end up mixing it with the maple. It'll just kind of depend on how much we get. Okay, it's syrup bottling day. So my season this is my first season doing syrup. And it didn't turn out quite as I anticipated. I ended up tapping 7 black walnut trees on my parents' property, and I got very, very little sap. I did boil it down to this syrup here. There's not a lot here, and I didn't test this for its sugar content or its bricks or anything like that. It's just really not worth it. So I'm just going to keep it like this, and we will eat this fairly soon on pancakes or French toast. So then I also tapped 2 very large silver maple trees on my neighbor's front yard, with their permission, of course, and those maple trees put out a ton of sap, considering I only had 2 trees. I had 2 taps in each tree. So what I ended up doing, and I talked about this earlier, I gathered the sap each day or every couple of days, and I boiled it inside. I did all my boiling inside, which it was pretty steamy in here, but honestly it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I don't have stickiness on my walls or anything like that. I have really high ceilings, like 10-foot ceilings, so maybe my 10-foot ceilings are sticky. I don't know. I'm not climbing up there to find out. So I would boil the sap every couple of days, every day or so, and reduce it to about 1/4 of its volume. Until it was sweet and basically until I could get it in a jar. So then I put the almost syrup in the jar and put it in the fridge. So I have sap syrup here from late February all the way through like early to mid-March. This is March 11th and this is February 21st. So, and as I boiled it down also, so I filtered it when it went into the pot as sap, and then I filtered it again when it went from the pot into these jars. So this has now been filtered 2 times. I will filter it a 3rd time when I go to bottle it. So what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to take my large aluminum pot. I got this at a thrift store a couple months ago, and this is what I've been using to boil my sap in. I have a couple other pots, but this is my biggest one. Some people say not to boil in aluminum, but that's what I have, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to empty all of this chilled sap/syrup into my pot and start doing the final boil on it. As this almost syrup has been sitting in the refrigerator, a lot of sediment, well not a lot, but some sediment has settled down to the bottom. They call that niter, or sugar, is it sugar sand, I think? I'm trying to not get it in there. Some of it is like clinging to the bottom, so it's kind of getting itself out. But like I said, I'm going to filter this again when it gets to bottling time, and so that should get out the rest of the sugar sand. Okay, so according to everything I have read online and in my little book, I did get this little book that came with my kit. I need to bring it up to temperature and also to test the bricks. I thought I had a candy thermometer. I do not have a candy thermometer, so I'm just going to be using this meat thermometer. Probably not the best, but it'll work for what I need it to do. I also have this contraption. I actually borrowed this from a friend who has done maple syrup in the past, and it measures the bricks or sugar content. So you put your hot syrup in there, you put this in it, and it'll tell you if it's in the right range. So I'm borrowing that. I will probably buy myself my own for next year. And then as far as what I'm putting my finished syrup in, I have some pint mason jars that I picked up. I'm going to go ahead and get these washed and sterilized and ready to bottle. So I've been boiling the sap for, excuse me, for about an hour maybe a little bit over. Keeping it at a pretty high temperature. I've been testing it with my thermometer. Like I said, I don't have a candy thermometer. I thought I did, but I don't, so I've just been using this meat thermometer. The meat thermometer goes up to 220 degrees, and maple syrup is done at 219 degrees. So periodically I'm putting my thermometer in there, and right now we're at about 216 to 217 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're getting there. As the sugar content increases, so as more water is boiled off and the amount of sugar in the remaining syrup goes up, then the syrup will boil at a higher temperature. It is done when it hits 219, so like I said, we're getting pretty close. And then also what I've been doing periodically, just to kind of familiarize myself, is I've been putting the syrup in this tube. It's a stainless steel tube. You put it in there about like that far, and then you take your, I don't know if you could say hydrometer or hydrometer, this thing right here, sorry my hands are sticky, and you put it in there. It's got a weight at the bottom, and based on the viscosity of the syrup, you want the level of the syrup to be somewhere in between these two red lines, which is, here it is, it's bricks. So it's a bricks of, looks like 59 to 67 is what this instrument is supposed to be at. I've also read some places it's supposed to be between 65 and 67. So in that general area, and the bricks is measuring the sugar content. So we still got a little ways to go. You can see it in there. You see a little bit of foam in there. That's just impurities. That will be filtered out when I go to do the final bottling. The way I do it is I have this other pan over here. I have my filter here, which is an old food processor that I use for canning tomatoes, and these filters that came with my kit, which fit perfectly in there. I usually clip them on the sides with binder clips like this. I just use 2 binder clips to clip them so it doesn't slip, and I'm going to pour the hot finished syrup through the filter and let it drip into my second stainless steel pan or pot, and that's where I will keep it as I bottle. So I'll probably put that on a low temperature just to keep it warm as I'm bottling. So my syrup is right at 219 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and test it again in the hydrometer. So I've got about a ladle full of syrup in here, and you just gently, might be overflowing, we'll see. Whoa. Looks like we're at 60, 64? 61, 65. Right at 65, and it needs to be between 66, I believe, and 67.5. So we're just about there. I'll probably go ahead and take it off the heat and transfer it to my second pan. So what I'll be doing here is, you can see I've got my filter. I'm just going to pour the hot syrup in here and let it do its third filter into here, and then I will turn this on to keep it warm while I'm getting the bottles ready to go. Here it is. I have poured the finished syrup into my filter. You can see the impurities and foam and junk are staying in the filter, and the clean syrup is going down below. You can see how good it looks. Yay! Here is the filter. There's a little tiny bit of syrup in there, but what's gross is this stuff here. So if I can show you, it's just like, ew. Can you see it? It's gross. It's like gritty. Like I tasted it. It's sweet, but it tastes like grit. So that is what you're getting out with your final boil. So I'm bringing it back up to temperature. You want it around 185 degrees for bottling, and it's probably there, so I'm going to go ahead and get that going. The instructions in the book say to bottle the syrup when it's at about 185 degrees, and to fill up your jar or bottle to the top, and as the syrup cools, it will shrink and give you some head space. So that's what we're doing. You can see how pretty it looks. I'm not sure how much syrup I have here. This is a whole new process for me, so kind of cool. Got my jars all filled up. I've got 7.5 pints. 8 pints makes a gallon, which is what I predicted. I had just under 40, or right around 40 gallons of sap that I collected from the 2 silver maple trees, and maple has a ratio of about 40 gallons of sap to about a gallon of syrup, so I'm right about where I should be. After you fill the jars with the hot syrup and you wipe the rim with a damp cloth, I use a damp paper towel, then you put your lid and your ring on and you turn it on its side. I'm not 100% sure why you're supposed to turn it on its side, but that's what you're supposed to do. So we'll leave these for 24 hours to cool. All of my maple syrup jars sealed up, so we're good to go. I believe we can store these in the jar for about a year. If you guys enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Talk to you later.